When my parents gave the company I'd worked for 10 years to my sister, I quit. Dad said she has the vision. Then contracts failed without me. You ever work somewhere for 10 years, pouring your blood, sweat, and tears into it, only to find out that the family you trusted handed the whole thing over to your younger sister? Yeah, that happened to me. At first, I couldn't believe it. The company I'd put my life into every early morning, every late night, every weekend suddenly wasn't mine anymore. My parents, the people who raised me, who watched me grow with this business, just handed the reins to Samantha, my sister, not me. After all those years, my dad looked me straight in the eye and said, "She has the vision." Vision? I'd spent over a decade making sure everything in that company worked. I was the one who kept the wheels turning. But apparently, that didn't matter. So I quit. At least the way I'd been living my life was over. No more 70-hour weeks. No more sacrificing myself for a company that wasn't mine to inherit. But here's where things get interesting. When contracts started falling apart, soon after I stepped back, my parents were scrambling to keep things afloat. And suddenly, I was the only one who could fix the mess. That's my story, how I went from the forgotten kid behind the scenes to the only hope for a family business that didn't want me. And trust me, the ride gets way crazier from here. So, let me take you back a bit. For 10 years, Cole & Sons Construction was my world. When I was 21, I started as a laborer, just a summer job during college breaks. But it quickly became way more than that. I learned everything: how to estimate jobs, negotiate contracts, manage teams. By the time I graduated with an engineering degree, I wasn't just a worker, I was the operations manager. Every nail hammered, every blueprint approved, it was under my watch. Meanwhile, Samantha was living the big city dream in New York. Marketing gigs, fancy events, endless vacations. It was like we were living in different worlds. While I was knee deep in concrete dust and client meetings, she was posting pictures from rooftop bars. But it wasn't just about the hard work. I sacrificed a lot for the company. My friendships, holidays, weekends, they all took a back seat. I thought, if I just keep at it, the family would recognize my dedication. If I proved myself indispensable, eventually the company would be mine. I was wrong. The first hint came during a meeting that still haunts me. My dad, calm but firm, said Samantha would take over as CEO when he retired next year. That was the official announcement. My position, operations manager, was safe, he said. But safe wasn't what I wanted. Not when Samantha, who'd been with the company for a mere 8 months, was suddenly the future. I remember the way Samantha smiled at me that day, a mix of pity and pride. "Alex," she said softly, "I can't do this without you." It sounded genuine, but I couldn't shake the feeling. She believed she earned what was handed to her, no questions asked. My mother tried to soften the blow, telling me I'd still be important, that I could help. Behind the scenes, behind the scenes, that phrase hit like a punch. That was where I'd always been, unseen, making everything work while others got the spotlight. Leaving that room, walking down the familiar hallways of Cole and Sons, it felt stranger than ever. Pictures lined the walls, projects, grand openings, handshakes with clients. My dad was in almost every photo. Samantha was in a few of the newer ones. Me? Not one. That night, alone on my balcony, holding a bottle of whiskey, I watched the city lights and thought about everything I'd given up for this company. That massive tower project, my brainchild. I'd stayed awake for days, perfecting that bid, tweaking every number, pioneering new techniques. Dad took the credit, the applause, but I did the heavy lifting. And now I was just the guy who keeps things running, the operations guy with no future here. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but as the whiskey burned, a quiet thought formed. Maybe it was time I stopped giving everything away for nothing. The pivotal moment came in a polished conference room, the type of place where families make decisions that change everything without really consulting everyone involved. I stood there, arms crossed, Watching Dad pick up the pen, signing that contract in his signature, flourished the same autograph I'd seen on hundreds of company papers over the years. Next to him was Mom, her hand resting on Samantha's shoulder. Pride radiated from them both, as if they were passing down a kingdom. That's it then, Dad said, handing the paperwork to our family attorney. Official as of today. I couldn't move. I was frozen in place, a spectator in what was supposed to be my life. For 10 years, I had been the backbone of Cole and Sons Construction. Starting as a summer laborer at 21, I worked my way up, learning the ropes in estimating during college, then stepping into operations management once I graduated with my engineering degree. Samantha? She was the New Yorker in the family, busy with marketing jobs, fancy events, and the kind of life that didn't include hard hats or blueprints. She had been with the company for 8 months, 8 measly months, compared to my decade. Alex, Dad's voice cut through my thoughts. Did you hear what I said? I blinked, focusing on the three faces turned to me, their smiles polite but firm. This doesn't change your position. You'll remain operations manager, Dad reassured, his tone smooth, like he was doing me a favor. Samantha will take over as CEO when I retire next year, but your role is safe. Safe. Just safe. My sister's smile was a mix of sympathy and triumph, like someone who had just received the keys to a kingdom without any real effort but fully expected obedience. She came forward, took my hands gently, and said, Alex, I couldn't do this without you. Your expertise means everything. Her voice was soft and practiced, seasoned with the kind of tenderness that tries to mask a power play. I looked into her eyes, hazel, same as mine and Dad's, but I didn't see honesty there. Just confidence. I couldn't hold back the question any longer. Why Samantha? Not me? The silence that followed was thick. David, the attorney, shifted uncomfortably. Mom's smile tightened. Dad cleared his throat. We discussed this, Dad said carefully. Samantha has the vision. The clients love her. You're brilliant with operations, but not CEO material. I cut in. I'm not saying I want to be CEO. No, but you're better with the technical side, the nuts and bolts. Samantha brings fresh ideas. You're both important. Mom stepped closer. You're crucial behind the scenes. Samantha will need your support. Behind the scenes, the phrase stung. That's where I'd always been, the reliable shadow in the background, never the face the company showed. Samantha smiled again, stepping forward to clasp my hands. We'll be unstoppable together. You know the operations inside and out. I bring the big clients. It's a partnership. But I saw through the act. She thought she'd earned it fair and square. I wasn't so sure. I pulled my hands away slowly. Congratulations, I said. If you'll excuse me, I have work to finish. I walked out before they could say anything else. The once familiar halls of Cole and Sons suddenly felt foreign. Photos lined the walls. Dad shaking hands, hosting ribbon cuttings, Samantha in new additions. Me, nowhere to be found. That night, on my balcony, with a glass of whiskey, I saw the city lights twinkle below each building, a silent testament to my work. The Harrington Tower, our biggest project, was my brainchild. I spent sleepless nights preparing the bid, innovating construction methods. Dad was the face who accepted the credit. And now, I was just an operations guy, doing what I was told. I realized I was done giving it all away. That night marked a turning point, not with fireworks or outbursts, but with a quiet, cold clarity. I sat alone on my balcony, whiskey in hand, laptop open to project files that still needed my attention. My flat overlooked downtown, dotted with the achievements I'd helped build, but something in me had shifted. For years, I had worked 70-hour weeks, holidays spent on job sites, vacations interrupted by emergency calls, missing family moments, friendships slipping away, all sacrificed on the art of Cole and Sons because I believed I'd inherit it one day. What a fool I'd been. The message from my parents was loud and clear. The company wasn't mine. 10 years of sacrifice, and I was still behind the scenes. So I made a choice. No more 70-hour weeks. No more martyrdom. From now on, I would do only what my role demanded. Scheduled hours, weekends off, vacation days used. I sent Samantha a text the next day, no reply. Work called, a new problem on the West Side development. Usually, I'd dive in immediately. But this time, I took a breath and did just what I was hired for. Handled essential issues without absorbing crisis. Arriving 2 hours late at the office, coffee in hand, the looks I got from staff told me everything. Linda, our receptionist who had been with the firm longer than I had, raised an eyebrow. Everything okay, Alex? Never better. Beautiful morning, isn't it? I kept things professional, polite, but I wasn't the man willing to carry every burden anymore. Samantha stopped by my office midday with that familiar cajoling tone. Ready for lunch? I've got plans. I said, eyes on my screen. We need to talk about the transition. There's nothing to discuss. You're the heir. I'm doing my job. She frowned, her confidence narrowing. Dad's worried you're ignoring him. I'm busy. Too busy for the West Side bid, apparently. That's due Friday, she said. You said you'd review the numbers. It's not on my schedule, I replied. If it's urgent, I'll look next week. She tossed a look. You're better with clients anyway. I said nothing. Waiting for her to leave, I felt a mix of guilt and satisfaction. I'd shut off the self-sacrificing Alex. Now, I was just the operations guy doing enough but no more. At 5 p.m., I closed my laptop and left the office. No last-minute checks, no emergency follow-ups. Freedom, exhilarating in its simplicity. The West Side bid was submitted without my final review, and of course it failed. An avoidable mistake, something I'd have caught immediately. Dad called the following Monday, anger burning through the phone. What the hell's going on? We lost West Side because of a rookie mistake. I was calm. That's unfortunate. This was our big chance. I thought Samantha was handling it. She needed your expertise. If you'd been scheduled properly, things would have gone differently. You weren't. Dad's silence lasted a beat before he snapped. What do you mean? I'm no longer available 24/7. I work 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, lunch breaks included. Well, since when? Since you made it clear I'll never own this company. His face fell. Are you punishing us? No. I'm just adjusting my work to match my role. Operations manager. No future ownership. The silence was deafening. Arriving at the office 2 hours later than usual, coffee in hand, I noticed the stares almost immediately. People who'd been used to my 6 a.m. start now did a double take. Linda, the receptionist who cornered me most mornings, gave me a knowing look. Everything all right, Alex? Better than ever, I said, offering the first genuine smile many had seen in a long time. Isn't it a beautiful morning? The usual flood of emails and voicemails awaited me like a tidal wave. 3 urgent calls from various superintendents. 14 emails flagged as high priority and 2 project managers waiting at my office door, all needing answers. Instead of my usual dive into chaos routine, I calmly met with the managers. I listened, offered clear advice, and walked away in just half an hour. No hand-holding, no firefighting the entire day, just effective management. It was a new version of me, less burned out, but still sharp. Later that day, Samantha appeared at my door again. Lunch? She asked, a rehearsed friendly tone in her voice. Can't, I replied, eyes locked on my computer screen. We need to talk about the transition, she pressed. There's nothing to talk about. You're the heir. I'm doing my job, I said flatly. Her face fell. Dad said you haven't returned his calls. Yes, I've been busy, too busy to handle the West Side bid. That's due Friday, she snapped. That's not in my schedule. If it's urgent, I'll get to it next week. She paused and said, you're better with clients anyway. I didn't respond. The silence between us was heavy until she finally spoke, voice tense. Fine, I'll tell Dad you're unavailable. As she left, I took a long breath. A mix of guilt and grim satisfaction bubbled inside. I'd never shirked responsibility before, but now I was protecting myself. I wasn't going to burn out for a company that had already moved on without me. At exactly 5 p.m., I shut down my computer, grabbed my things, and walked out. No last minute rounds, no checklists, just freedom. And the consequences came fast. The West Side bid went out without my review. We lost by a hair because of a rookie math error I would have caught in seconds. Monday morning, Dad stormed into my office, face flushed with frustration. What the hell is going on, Alex? We lost West Side because of a rookie mistake. I stayed calm, measuring my words. That's unfortunate. This was our chance to break into healthcare. Samantha was handling it, right? She was, but she needed your expertise on the numbers. She needed your expertise. If someone had scheduled time for me to review, I'd have caught the mistake. Dad's eyes narrowed. What are you saying? I'm no longer on call 24/7s. I work 8 to 5, lunch breaks. I go home on time. Since when? Since you made it clear I don't own this company. My role is operations manager. Nothing more. His face paled, then flushed. You're punishing us. No, I'm adjusting my work-life balance to match my place here. You can't expect owner-level dedication without ownership. His jaw clenched. I need you, Alex. The company needs you. I'm here when I'm needed. During business hours. No extras. He sighed deeply. There's a meeting with the Hartman Group on Thursday. The CFO asked specifically for you about the cost-saving measures on the tower project. I flipped open my calendar. I can be there 10 to 11 a.m. Meeting starts at 9. I'll be there for the second half. I stood up. Anything else? His stare was intense, like I was a stranger. No. Walking back to my office, I felt the weight of the employees' eyes on me. Rumors were swirling. The family drama was public. Let them wonder. Let them guess. Thursday morning arrived, and I showed up at the Hartman Group offices right at 10 a.m. Exactly as I'd promised. The meeting had started an hour earlier, and as I slipped quietly into the room, I could feel the tension. My father's icy glare met me the moment I walked in, while Samantha looked more confused than anything else. The Hartman executives were deep in financial discussions about their next big development. Thomas Hartman, the CEO, was at the head of the table, his sharp eyes scanning every spreadsheet and budget projection. Ah, Alex, Thomas said with a smile as he spotted me. Just the man we need. Over the next hour, I was in my element. They were discussing using a modular construction method I had pioneered on our recent tower project. They wanted to adapt it to the new development with some tweaks. Questions came fast and furious, and I answered everyone with technical know-how and practical insight. When I suggested a few improvements, heads nodded in agreement. That's when I realized this was what I really loved about my job, solving complex problems, pushing innovation, and delivering real value. When the meeting wrapped up, Thomas pulled me aside privately. I was worried when you weren't here at the beginning, he said quietly. Your father and sister seemed a bit out of their depth on the technical side. I nodded politely. She's still learning the ropes. Thomas looked me in the eye, his gaze sharp as ever. So I gathered. Your father said she'll be taking over as CEO. Interesting choice. I said nothing. Silence said enough. Just know this, Thomas continued, handing me his card. Core & Sons won the Hartman account because of you. Your expertise, creativity, and attention to detail. I hope that stays no matter what happens inside the company. I tucked the card into my pocket. Thank you. As the executives left, Dad approached me, part relief, part frustration on his face. You saved that meeting, he said reluctantly. I did my job, I replied. Where were you for the first hour? I told you 10 to 11 works best. I had other commitments. Dad clenched his jaw. What could be more important than Hartman? My life, I said simply, turning away. As I walked back to my office, I caught Samantha pleading with Dad. What's wrong with him? She asked. I don't know, he muttered irritably. He needs to snap out of it before he costs us everything. I smiled to myself. They still thought this was a tantrum. They had no idea I was already polishing my resume, reaching out to industry contacts, and thinking about what came next. A week later, the chaos started to unravel the moment I stepped back further. Dad burst into my office, face ashen. Hartman just called. What now? They are reconsidering future projects with us. I raised an eyebrow. Why? Apparently, Samantha had met with Thomas and promised to complete a new development 3 months ahead of schedule. That's impossible, I said flatly. Not with those design specs. Not unless they spend 35% more. Dad groaned, irritated. Samantha thought she could impress them with an aggressive timeline. Now Thomas demands we honor that promise or lose 12 million in contracts. I leaned back, absorbing the news. What do you want me to do? Dad stared at me, disbelief clear. Fix it. Call Thomas. Explain. Work out a compromise. He respects you. I shook my head. That's a CEO problem, not an operations manager problem. Alex, this isn't the time for attitude. The company's on the line. Not mine, I corrected. His face flushed red. You're willing to lose our biggest client because you're upset? My feelings on the issue, I said quietly. I've adjusted my investment to match what the company's invested in me. Frustrated, Dad ran his hands through his hair. What do you want, a title? Co-CEO? No, I said softly. I don't want a consolation prize. What then? What I wanted was for 10 years of sacrifice to matter, for you to see me before you were in crisis. Dad's expression shifted from anger to fear. You can't mean that. This is family, our legacy. No, I said firmly. It's Samantha's legacy now. You made that call, not me. Just then his phone rang. He looked at the screen and cursed under his breath. It's Thomas. I have to take this. Good luck, I said, already returning to my work. At the door, Dad paused, looking lost, like he didn't recognize his own son anymore. I sat alone in my office, a strange emptiness settling in. I should have felt justice, vindication, or maybe even triumph, watching my forecasts come true so quickly. Instead, I felt hollow. That company had ruled my life. Watching it falter, that should have hurt more. Maybe I had already let go without even realizing it. The Hartman issue was just the beginning. In the next month, 2 major contracts collapsed under Samantha's lead. Despite her people skills, she couldn't grasp the technical limits that dictated price and deadlines. Promises she made were impossible to keep. She chased new clients but lost the ones we had. Meanwhile, I stuck to my word. No late nights, no weekend work, no firefighting. I watched from a distance, stunned but detached, like watching a slow-motion car crash. That distance, that quiet detachment, it was both a shield and a prison. One quiet Sunday afternoon, there was an unexpected knock on my door. It was Mom. She had never visited my apartment before. Usually, calls were short and businesslike. But today, her eyes were heavy with worry, the deepest I'd ever seen them. May I come in? She asked softly. I stepped aside and let her in. My place was still sparse. A few bookcases lined one wall, filled mostly with technical textbooks I'd meant to read but never had time for. On the dining table sat a half-finished model of the Hartman Tower project. Mom's eyes fell on the model immediately. You're building a model? A hobby? Something to keep me busy now that I have time, I answered, shrugging. She touched the table's edge, avoiding my gaze. Your father is worried sick. The company is falling apart. I nodded. I know. Samantha's trying, but she's just not cut out for running a construction company. Mom's eyes burned with the force of her feelings. That's not fair. She has other strengths. Being my favorite isn't a business qualification, I said quietly. She recoiled, almost like I'd slapped her. Is that what you think? That we favored Samantha? Didn't you? I held her gaze. You gave her the company despite no real experience or dedication. What else would you call that? Mom slumped into the couch, suddenly looking decades older than I ever imagined. We thought your father saw fresh ideas. You were so good at operations that we took it for granted. Reliable, dependable. Her voice trembled. But maybe we were wrong. For the first time in years, our family's cracks showed not just in business, but in hearts and hopes. I didn't have answers, only a quiet, shared understanding that some things couldn't be fixed. Sitting alone after Mom left, I stared out my window. The skyline twinkled in the distance, buildings standing tall, reminders of everything I'd helped build and everything I'd lost. Maybe letting go was the best thing I could do. The company wasn't mine anymore. The sacrifices, the late nights, the heartbreak, they didn't disappear, but neither did my sense of self. I realized I hadn't lost my worth, just my place in the family story that had moved on without me. Freedom was strange, scary, but also liberating. No more 70-hour weeks. No more silent sacrifices. My future was mine to shape. I was already reaching out, connecting with people who valued what I brought to the table. Opportunities were waiting, places where my skills and commitment meant more than a family name. And maybe, just maybe, this was the real beginning. Sometimes losing everything makes room for something better. So here's the new chapters, fresh starts, and a life worth building beyond the walls of Cole and Sons. If there's one thing I learned from all this, it's that your worth isn't what others decide, it's what you decide for yourself. And that's a legacy no one can take away. So, what's the takeaway from all of this? Sometimes the people closest to us don't see our value until it's almost too late. And sometimes the very thing we've given our whole selves to may no longer have a place for us. But here's the thing, your worth is never dictated by someone else's decisions. It's about what you believe, how you stand up for yourself, and the courage to walk away when you need to. Alex's story is a tough reminder that loyalty without recognition is a dangerous game. But it's also a powerful lesson in reclaiming your life and finding freedom on your own terms. If you've ever felt overlooked, undervalued, or stuck in a role that didn't honor your efforts, maybe it's time to rethink what you give your energy to. You deserve to be seen. You deserve to be appreciated. And most importantly, you deserve to build your own legacy, one that reflects your hard work and passion. Thanks for listening to this story. If you found it inspiring or relatable, go ahead and hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe for more real-life tales from Reddit that will make you think, feel, and maybe even change the way you see your own journey. Drop your thoughts or your own experiences in the comments. I love hearing your stories. Until next time, keep pushing forward. And remember, your story matters.